It was at this moment that he knew.
He bucked up. Welcome. You're listening to Bucked Up with Sam Buck.
Now you fucked up! Now you fucked up! Now you fucked up! You have fucked up now!
This is a pretty long intro.
Now you fucked up! 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 Now you have fucked up!
Welcome, Evan Zigmond, my favorite person in this room with a plaid shirt on.
Hi, welcome Sam Buck to your own podcast.
Yeah, you're hosting
My name
this.
is Evan Zigmond. Yeah.
Welcome. I'm happy to have you here. I was worried you weren't going to be coming back to Massachusetts. I thought you were going to be stuck out
Yeah.
in New Mexico.
Yeah, I thought I was going to be stuck out in New Mexico too. I remember the last mic that I did before I had to leave. It was so sudden. I was at 7:30 on a Tuesday night. And we knew the email was going to be coming out during the day, but I just didn't want to stick around campus. And so I was waiting for my turn to go up. There were maybe like 10 people.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a text from one of my friends, and it just said, oh, no. I was like, oh, it's my last mic, isn't it? So I went inside, and I told Liam, I said, hey, I just realized I have to go back to New Mexico in about 4 days. I might not come back. So I might have to go. And he was like, oh, I'll just put you up. And so I went up and I was like, hi, it's my last mic. And it was inconsequential, you know, I just told jokes about Optimus Prime or whatever and then flew 2,000 miles away. But yeah, it's been a wild couple months.
It has. I was on my way to actually my first gig in my hometown that I grew up in.
Yeah.
And I was on my way there when I got the text
Yeah.
that it was all canceled. And I was like,
Oh.
shit.
Yeah. I thought it was only going to be, I thought I'd be back in the saddle by now.
Mhm.
So that's kind of been a jarring aspect of the last couple months for sure.
How was it like in New Mexico with the coronavirus?
Corona?
Yeah.
I think at the time, New Mexico was a good place to be. Around March and April, we had 6 cases when I got there in the whole
Oh, that's
state.
not bad at all.
No. So it was pretty safe to go about one's business. At this point, though, you have people from Texas and Arizona sort of...
I just spilled
transmitting.
water all down
Oh,
my
no.
front. I'm going to stand
Now
up.
you bucked up.
Oh, you bucked up big time, buddy.
I bucked up big time.
That's rough. That's great.
Just pissing myself mid-story.
But yeah, as of right now, I'd say Massachusetts is probably a better place to be. New Mexico is still in phase 1. So.
I've actually, after tonight, I will have gotten stage time 4 times this week,
Let's
which
go.
is like
Holy shit.
amazing. It's such a good feeling.
Yeah.
Before quarantine, I was up to 8 to
Yeah.
11
Yeah,
mics a week, I think, but
Yeah.
4 feels good.
I'm sure it does.
It's kind of like riding a bike, though. You don't really. I thought I was gonna forget how to do it, but it kind of came back. I
That's
mean,
good.
I bombed hard
Yeah.
last night, but it comes back.
But there's even something that I miss about bombing.
It's nice. Yeah,
it is.
It gets.
Everybody
feels-
love everybody!
Yeah,
Thank you. It feels good to get put in your place, though,
it does. Yeah, it's very humbling.
and that's the only way, really, that I'll force myself to write new jokes. Is if I bomb with jokes I know work, then I'm like, oh, those jokes are tired.
Yeah,
I need to do something else.
yeah. Or to run it by a friend and have the friend say, hey, it's been a couple weeks. You gotta. That was one nice thing about going to college with other comics. Being around some of the other Tufts people. Is that if I did something for a couple weeks in a row, even if it was going well, one of them would say, oh, I love this joke, but you kind of have to start.
Oh,
like,
you had
have to
people
start-
doing that? Okay,
yeah,
that
like
I
holding me accountable. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Just like that. Whenever I'm getting tired of one of your jokes, I'm just gonna go boop 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 boop.
That's the
You just can't hear it from the audience.
yeah.
That's the new get off the stage.
That's the gong.
That's gonna be
Yeah.
the light at my if I ever start a show. My light's just gonna be me going boop 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 boop.
You do it quiet when they have a minute left.
So I started this podcast over quarantine to fill up the time that I had during quarantine. You started a very successful Facebook page, one that I'm like, and I hate breakfast food, and I still joined it. Breakfast food's my least favorite meal of the day.
I'm so glad that you joined despite hating breakfast food. I think that's a large part of the spirit of Eggs on Toast enthusiasts.
It's the same reason I sometimes look at Breitbart. I like to look at things that make me mad.
Well, I guess I'm flattered to be lumped in with.
You're the Breitbart
such
of breakfast
creators as
food.
known for it.
You should put that, the Breitbart of breakfast food.
I do appreciate when. I think part of what I wanted with that group was for everyone to join, even people who don't eat eggs. I have a couple friends who, like one of my friends is allergic to eggs, and he joined the group just to sort of.
Is he allergic to toast too?
Provide moral support. No, he's not allergic to toast. So
Well, then
I
he
guess
can fuck off.
Yeah. No,
It's all or nothing.
Yeah, all or no. I do like that some people are more into the toast, some people are more into the eggs, some people post things that have nothing to do with either. That's really fun.
I hate toast so much that when I get salads, I ask for no croutons.
Wow. And that's like a cousin of toast. That's
Yeah,
not even
I hate the whole family tree.
Wow. What other
The whole family loaf.
Okay, the whole family. What other bread variants do you hate?
I love like a soft baguette or sourdough. I don't want it toasted. Paninis get too oily.
They're incredibly oily. I feel
Everybody love everybody!
That's negative.
We can shit on.
Negative against paninis.
I worked for 5 years making paninis.
You
at
also
a
worked at
panini.
Panera?
No, I didn't. Did you work at Panera?
I did.
How was that? How
was
was
my
working at Panera? I feel like that's where all people who are too stupid to be librarians but look like them go to eat.
It was my first like quote unquote like real job that I was at for a long time. I was there for years. And I probably had every single position like available that I did at Panera.
Can you bake the shit out of a pastry?
I mean, yeah, it's pretty.
So
They tell you what to do, so it's
You're
not,
like the face of Panera.
No, it's awful.
Yeah, you
I
kind of look
cannot
like
go-
the girl. Oh no, that's Starbucks.
I cannot eat there anymore. Like the smell of it, because you know when you like work somewhere in food service, I think everybody in their life should work in some form of food service, sometime to be humbled. But when you leave, your clothes like smell like something like specific, and now I can't get that smell like out of my brain anytime I go to Panera, so I can't go there anymore. Worked with a bunch of ex-cons though.
Near my house growing up, there was a McDonald's within walking distance, like maybe like a quarter mile. And every morning when I would leave my house, I would just smell French fries like in the air. And so now I can't really smell French fry oil without. It's like nostalgic and gross at the exact same time. It's an odd couple of feelings together.
I don't like nostalgia. Like when people listen to like music from like the early 2000s, like throwback, I'm like, this is shit. Anything from the early 2000s is shit. Like the music hadn't figured out how to really use computers. CGI of movies didn't really figure out how to do it. Sorry, that went on. I got. Can you play the Everyone Loves Everybody and then the boom, 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 boom?
No, I actually love CGI from the early 2000s. I think it was the best, most well-developed CGI, especially like, you ever see that Bong Joon-ho movie, The Host? With the
I did.
Yeah, you know that wonderful, amazing, perfected CGI? That's the kind of CGI that I like. And that's the sort of positivity we bring here on the Bucked Up podcast.
Hosted by Evan Zigmond. Why did you start that Facebook group? Do you just love egg? Do you eat it every morning?
Yeah, I had been posting egg-related internet content for years.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That's my 1 minute. I only have 1 minute to talk about that. One second.
These glasses are weird shapes. You feel like you're gonna miss your mouth.
Yeah, a little bit. I also I'm not the most coordinated person.
Neither am I.
But
I didn't mean to shit on your glasses. Sorry, Ani.
I got really into. I love eggs and this is I think related to the self-help aspect of this
Oh yeah,
podcast.
this is a self-help podcast.
Yeah,
I forgot about that.
I do love sort of eggs as a method of sort of self-empowerment. I know that sounds very cheesy, but there is
It's like
something.
a feminist thing.
There's something to be said.
I love
for-
my eggs.
I do. I love them intensely. There's something to be said for sort of, I think like making food for myself in the morning. I'm sort of proving to myself that I love myself, if that makes sense. And once you get that, the rest of your day goes much
Do
better.
you have self-love? Do you love yourself?
Yes.
Okay, see. So what I do in the morning, because this is a self-help podcast, is I work out for breakfast.
Ooh.
I
power move.
either I meditate that's what I do first thing no matter what. I'm 130 days straight of meditating actually
Wow.
today. I do yoga and then I go for a run. But I do that cuz I'm like I hate you. You're going to push yourself in the morning.
Yeah.
But it pushes me to do it, but it doesn't make me love myself.
That makes sense. Yeah, I think it's sort of it's the end is the same, but the means are different, right? Like I think a lot of that for me it works the other way around, where if I don't make the eggs in the morning, I feel sort of unproductive or like I haven't fulfilled some sort of goal.
Isn't
And
it kind of crazy that you eat every morning and you're very thin, and I work out every morning and I'm fat as fuck?
I mean,
I'm 30 pounds down over quarantine.
congrats,
Self-love. This is
but
self-love.
it's all. You still have the fattest ass. I think full stop. I'm not even gonna qualify.
I've got the fattest.
Yeah, so it evens out. I have a very run of the mill ass, and you have the fattest one. So you know.
I feel like that should, like on posters when I'm on comedy shows, it should be the fattest ass of Boston comedy.
I love that. Yeah. Sam's fat ass brings you 45 minutes.
Damn, I'm not doing 45 minutes. What's the longest set you've ever done?
Probably like 12. No more than 12.
Yeah, I think 12's the longest.
Yeah.
Ani, what's the longest set you've ever done?
10 minutes?
I really want to start working with longer periods of time because I think
Took
there's
a long time to do that, though.
Yeah,
It's
that's
not
true.
a good 10 minutes. It's just 10 minutes.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. I think I think once we start getting longer spots, there's a lot more potential to build time on stage and sort of be able to deal with things that are happening in the audience.
Yeah.
One thing that I've really been interested in recently is dealing with, if there's a heckler, sort of trying to incorporate that into the larger... Thanks. I've been thinking about sort of if there's a heckler, trying to incorporate that into the larger show. And I think I've seen some comics at the national level do these really beautiful sort of tangents and then manage to seamlessly incorporate something like that, I think, helps someone build time in the opposite direction too. Like if something goes really well, you can just use that and like have that time the next time that you go on.
I'm one of those comedians that want to I freeze up to hecklers. I'm admitting that on the podcast, but I am not good with dealing with them, but I feel like I'm getting better. It's because I write every word that I'm going to say, and I kind of have it like it's not a speech, but like if anything throws me off, it kind of...
Yeah, it's easy when you have a sort of rhythm down and you have a sort of set of inflections down, and then you have someone throwing a wrench into that in the middle, like especially given the fact that we're only like a couple years in.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's tough. It really is.
And going back to the 10 minutes too is like I might have 15, 20 minutes worth of jokes, but that might not even be a tight 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you
That
can't,
makes
just because you have 15 minutes of material doesn't mean you have a 15-minute set.
That's true.
Because I guess this might be my own opinion, but I feel like there needs to be a through thread through your whole set.
Yeah.
Like there needs to be, even if not all the jokes are tied together, there has to be some sort of like a wave.
I super agree. And there's so many different ways to do that through line, I think there are sort of like emotional through lines. If you do 7 minutes of angry material, for example, it doesn't all have to be about the same thing, but like the sentiment is still, there are a lot of different ways to connect it that I think that's how people can do longer sets and have it engage the crowd is sort of that level of like thematic consistency.
Yeah, well, that's what breaks a good album from a great album in music is
True,
there
yeah.
could be just a grouping of songs that are very good, and that's a good album. I'll listen to that album. But then if you have kind of an album that's a piece as a whole, you can listen to each song on its own, but all together it's something. Andy Schoaf is really good at that. West Side Gun, shout out. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, and that's
He's very good at that, but I like the thematic albums.
yeah. I
And
think
comedy can work that way in your set.
I think so. Yeah, and there's just I think it shows a bit more successful adherence to the form that you're trying to create. If
Oh,
that makes
totally,
sense.
yeah.
To have that sort of consistency all the way through.
Well, I think that going back to your Facebook group is I mean, it got pretty successful. You have how many, like 500 members already?
It's like 450. Yeah.
That's pretty big for a group that just started. And it's because you stuck to one thing that, like, when I first saw you do it, I was like, this is the stupidest thing. I don't mean to be I'm making fun to I would never, I'm saying it to your face.
Yeah.
I mean to people's faces.
Yeah, I'm not super invested.
No,
in,
but it
yeah.
was so
You're
like
good.
stupid that it was a brilliant idea because you realize it's something like a market that's
Yeah,
untapped.
it is very. I certainly I mostly did it for sort of personal enjoyment.
Shits and
I-
giggles?
Yeah, shits and giggles. And I find one thing that I really appreciate about the group is how many different people enjoy some variant of eggs and toast. It's actually it's like my great aunt is in that group.
Oh, really?
And then, friends that I've had from high school and friends of their friends who I don't know, and just people from all, and then, comics, people from school. So it's like people from all sorts of different like walks of life can all talk about whether they like gooey yolks or not. It's kind of fun.
And it makes you happy and it builds, and as
Yeah.
it builds, it probably grows your happiness, and it's you just following whatever thing you want to do.
It's true, yeah. It was, I'll be honest, it was kind of selfish. It was mostly for my own personal enjoyment. Yeah.
Well, that's like Ben Miller, who was on the last episode. He was quitting comedy to follow his passion of cooking. But
Wow.
he thank you. I was about to burp, so I needed that to cover it. Perfect timing. But he started a running Facebook group, and I run mostly every day. I didn't get it in today, I'm being honest. But I try to run every day. And that group only got up to like 60 or so members, and it kind of tapered off.
Yeah.
Not to be rude, but your group keeps growing. Has anyone started shit on that page, like tried to bring politics into
Yeah,
it, or
so-
tried to get?
That's such an interesting point. It's one consideration that I've been bouncing around in my head for a while now is there are no rules in that group, and I don't want there to be rules
Yeah.
in that group. I think rules in that group dampens a lot of the sort of genuine sense of enjoyment and community that would come out without rules. And so, no one's posted anything super political in there yet. No
Yeah.
one's posted hate speech.
Like Trump hates eggs and toast.
Yeah, no one's posted hate speech is the thing that I would be, worried about first and foremost.
Yeah.
So if someone posted hate speech, I would absolutely have to go in and set a rule against hate speech.
I'm going to go off on a little tangent, and then you can continue.
Sure, yeah.
It's about hate speech. I might have talked about this on earlier podcasts, but I really hate when people use free speech as an argument, because hate speech is illegal.
Yeah.
Like, free speech
Yeah.
includes hate speech. Like, you can't just say anything and call it free speech.
Yeah.
Like, hate speech you will get in trouble for by the law.
Mm-hmm.
So when people just say, like, you can say whatever, it's free speech, bro, it's like, not really, because hate speech is included in that
Yes.
bubble. You can't meaningfully try to hurt someone's feelings by saying things that you know will hurt.
Yeah, and it also, it's just, I mean, as it pertains to the Eggs on Toast group,
Yeah.
I feel like there's such an air of positivity in there already that it would just be so, it would be sort of uncouth. It would be, it would be rude to so many people.
Yeah, it would be the
on top
downfall of
you
a
know,
real.
Yeah, it would be rude to people who you weren't actively targeting, and obviously it would be harmful to the people you were actively targeting. So, yeah, if there is hate speech in that group, I'm going to have to set a rule. But as it is, I like when people put non-egg on toast content in there. I think that's one thing that people are like, oh, ooh, if I post this, I don't know, keg on boast. Oh, maybe Evan will get mad.
What is a keg on boast?
Keg on boast isn't anything, but that's the thing. I love when people put keg on boast. You can put anything in there. It's just we mostly talk about eggs and toast.
So how do you police it that way?
I don't police it.
You could have said kegs on coats.
Yeah, kegs on coats. Really anything.
And the people are respectful to
Yeah.
each other without policing.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting
Yep,
concept.
yep.
Peg-legged
Concept.
folks.
That's how it goes.
That rhymes. Peg-legged folks.
Peg-legged folks. Yep. Craig on goat. There's Craig and he's sitting on a goat.
I
Oh,
want.
I would love somebody post Craig on goat. I will so. I'll
Can
give it a
someone-
heart. I'll give it a nice comment. Yeah.
Tag bucked up. We need more listeners.
Everybody love everybody!
That's great.
We should have brought eggs on toast on the podcast so I could have promoted it on your Facebook
I
page.
appreciate it. Oh, that would have been fun. Yeah. little collab. Yeah.
A little collab
Just
on
post the link to this podcast.
I'll do that.
There you
yeah.
go.
We could.
it. We talk a lot about eggs on toast on this podcast, even already.
So yeah, that is the. Thank you for asking me about eggs on toast because it has been, I mean, with very little going on. That's sort of my new life development. You know.
Did you ever start any Facebook pages before this? Non-successful or successful?
Yes, one non-successful one. I started a fan page for a musician that I really liked
Who's
back
the
in about
musician?
2018. His name is Jack Stratton. He's the band leader of a funk band called Wolfpack that I was really...
Oh, that's
yeah,
how I... Okay, yeah.
I was really into that band and their community for many years. And
What happened?
my interest just sort of... I mean, it's tapered with time. You know, I've gotten into other music. I mean, it's still my favorite band. I mean, but anyway, this is beside the point. I created a Facebook group for this one specific member because apart from there's a Facebook fan group for the band and then there are separate fan groups for each individual member.
Except for him?
Except for him. And yeah, I thought it would be fun to create one. It maybe lasted a week. It was
It turned out he was a real piece of shit.
no, I didn't fully invest myself. I think that was why it failed. But I don't know if you ever saw, I had an egg Instagram that I still have it. I can choose to post to it. I had an egg Instagram called Evan Made Eggs.
I think I saw that.
Yeah, so that was my first egg content, and that was mostly me just making my own eggs and posting them and, you know, adding weird little selfies on the end and things.
So there's a real reason that I'm talking about all this that much and why I'm asking you this is because you stuck to something and you built it and you grew it and it ended up, even though your first Facebook group didn't become successful, even though your Instagram didn't really blow up, that work paid off in the Facebook group.
Yeah, I guess I didn't.
Thank you. I brought that
Thanks.
shit all back around. Do.
Let's go. Oh, that's what. Look at that wonderful train of thought from our podcast host.
This is a self-help podcast. No, but I've been really thinking about that with comedy. Like, I believe in myself, even if my sets don't always go well or some of the jokes don't work. I know that if I keep working at it, it will pay off someday.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't work out for a long time, you just got to keep working on it. That's the only way. Malcolm Gladwell, Outliers. I was just reading that, and he talks about that. But it's that thing where you just kind of stick to it, and you know it's going to pay off one day.
I completely agree about sticking to it and sort of setting up other parts of your life in such a way where it's easier to focus on the thing you want to focus on.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
And that's something I really love about your stand-up and why when I first saw you on stage, I kind of gravitated to wanting to talk to you because you don't give a fuck. You have your own sense of humor. You're not really, you're doing your own thing. Even if it doesn't work, I know you believe in it.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing. Even if a joke doesn't work, I'll give up on the belief of it, and that's where I'll fail. But you believe in your shit.
Yeah, I think, again, it's... I appreciate it. I think it comes from a sort of self-serving want to like make myself laugh. And so if a joke doesn't work in front of a certain audience, I think to myself, well, there has to be an audience somewhere in the world that that has the same sense of humor as me that will find this. So a lot of it is just sort of, I guess, laughter in the moment isn't always the end goal.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Yeah.
I totally, that totally makes sense. And I'll have friends who are comedians who will be like, I don't really think that joke worked well, or it's not really funny. But that isn't always the end goal when I'm telling a joke. Sometimes I'm telling a joke that's really personal that I know isn't funny, just to prove to myself that I can talk about that on stage to cross that bar.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to please that audience. I'm trying to please myself.
It is so effective to sort of have a set, to have many goals, to be able to change one's goals whenever they feel like it. I wrote a joke a couple days ago that I plan on trying today, and the punchline involves me saying Dunkin' Donuts over and over again for about 2 minutes. And I'm going to tell it this evening, and if it doesn't get a laugh, it's not going to be a problem. That's not the point. In this case, the point is to say Dunkin' Donuts for 2 minutes, and that is sort of a self-contained goal that doesn't
exactly.
Laughter doesn't change that.
I'm gonna ask who your inspirations in comedy are, but first I'm going to just take what we were.
I love that question. Sorry.
But first I'm gonna take what we were just talking about and kind of put it on myself in the last 2 days.
Sure.
So last night I bombed, and I think it's because there were comedians in the audience that I respect, and I wanted to prove that I was funny, and so I didn't perform for myself. I performed for the audience, and I bombed.
Yeah.
But if you go back to Monday, I had a very good set, and I went up going, I'm going to make myself laugh. Like, I'm going to do jokes that make me laugh. I don't really care if the audience finds it funny, and I had a good set. And it's weird. Al Christakis is the person I think that's best at this, but it's a fine line about giving a fuck but not too much. Because if you give it too much, then you're going to get in your own head.
And the idea of going on stage with self-serving sort of, egotistical goals, that idea, even if you get a good feedback loop from the audience, I think that in and of itself is self-serving too. Getting that good feedback, sort of feeling the rhythm like in your body, and then responding to that is, I'm having a difficult time explaining. But it's a selfish thing. Yeah.
Comedy is a selfish thing.
Yeah.
And the audience knows it's a selfish thing, so you kind of have to treat it as a selfish thing when you're up there. I have such mush mouth. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
But it's true. Like, if you go up there and you're like, I want to please you, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
If you go up there and you're like, you're here to listen to me, this is my time, then it works.
Yeah, and there's also one can make the really vain angle work too if it's done in a certain way.
And if you care about, you have to love comedy.
Yeah.
No matter what, you have to love it and work on it and study it.
I've considered getting on stage and saying things like, if I have a short amount of time, like, hey, please look at me, I only have 4 minutes, like jumping up and down, doing a jumping jack.
I've done that. Speaking of my fat ass, I used to go up on stage at really bad dive bars and go, I promise you'll see some ass and titties if you pay attention.
Yeah.
And I'll go, ass and titties. Who wants to see and then I'll just show my ass. I'll just turn
There's
around
totally
or I'll
something to that,
flash
yeah.
my shirt. And it's so stupid and it's such an easy joke, but it gets people to pay attention. And if I then have enough trust in my jokes afterwards, then it doesn't matter how I got them to pay attention. They fucking did in the first 15 seconds. I don't care if they look at my stomach or tits.
That's true. Yeah. My
that's where men, it's male
May I just interject and say,
Yeah, of course. 'Cause I couldn't think of the term.
my tits are available to the public. If you
you want to
if
rent
I'm
them
at a
out?
comedy show and I feel like I need to, get the chest out. If I need to get the second belly button out, then that's what I'm gonna do.
Do you have a second belly
I
button?
do have a second belly button.
Would it be rude to ask to see it?
I mean, I'm okay with showing it to people if that's
I would love to see
okay.
it.
Hey, podcast listeners and watchers, just quick heads up, a little warning that you will be seeing some Evan Zigmond second belly button action here in a couple seconds, and so click through
Everybody
that.
love everybody!
Click through that if you don't want to see it. Okay. Okay. So, here's my regular belly button. right?
Okay.
Your camera.
Very nice.
Okay.
Very
Now,
nice.
So here's my regular
Oh.
belly button.
Right there. Yep.
And then here is my second belly button.
Oh my
shit.
God.
Yeah.
What's that from? And just to make you feel good. There's
Let's go. Get some body positivity on this podcast. Yes. I love it. Where did I get the second belly button? I won it in a raffle. No,
You went to the fair.
I went to the fair. They told me to guess how many M&Ms was in a thing, and they said if you guess, you get a belly button.
I thought it was from one of those balloon. You shoot the water at the target and the horses race.
Yeah, so what it was, they had like one of those, they had like a hammer and a big gong, and I needed to get the exact right amount of force on the hammer.
And you were a very strong child.
Well, I'm strong, but you can't be too strong because if it hits the bell and it comes back down, that's its own problem.
You're just the right
I
amount
have
of
the perfect
strength.
amount of finesse for the number of belly buttons that I have. Yes. Now, what actually happened was I was born 11 weeks premature, so almost 3 months premature, and I had a feeding tube from the ages of about 1 to 5, so a very long time, much longer than normal. And so when they took out the feeding tube, it left a scar that might not have been as prominent on someone who had a feeding tube taken out earlier.
But you had it for.
A long time, yeah.
Does that affect your eating habits now?
Not anymore. I used to get terrible acid reflux as a result of being born that early, and that was why I didn't like eating things by mouth, and so they would give me mush through the tube. But yeah, now my diet's fine.
So back to our original question that we went off a weird tangent on.
Yeah.
Who are your inspirations in comedy?
Yeah, great question. I think the first person who I saw that really blew my mind was Gary Goldman in 2017. I saw him he popped into Great Scott. R.I.P. Great Scott. Oh my gosh.
R.I.P. I've seen some amazing rap shows there.
I am so crestfallen that business no longer exists. It's really heartbreaking. But anyway, he popped in to a gas, the Rob Queen show. He popped in to the gas in 2017, and he went second to last. And everyone before him, there were 10 people in the audience. Everyone before him, they had all bombed. And then he went up, and he turned it around instantaneously. He killed the second he got on stage.
I've seen him do that at Laugh Boston
Yeah,
on an open
yeah,
mic once.
Killed for the entire 15 minutes with just material I had never even heard anything in the same category before. A lot of like very drawn, like not just wordplay, but like sort of extrapolating on the wordplay, drawing it out.
Had you ever heard of him before that?
No, I hadn't heard of him at all. And then
Have you listened to his albums now? Have you gone back?
huge fan. So he's one of my favorites. Another is James Acaster out of the UK.
I actually don't know. That's surprising because I know most comedians, but I don't know who James A. Caster is.
He's out of Kettering in the United Kingdom, and in 2018 he put out 4 hours of comedy on Netflix that all have a through line. It's
wow.
Yeah, it's like each hour has its own through line, and then the 4 hours all connect to each other too. It's incredibly well set up, very clever, and I'm also so I started looking into sort of his inspirations, and I read a newspaper article that said that he was influenced by Stuart Lee, and so I got into Stuart Lee, and there's a whole there's a really interesting community of So the alt comedy scene in the 1980s in the UK is a completely different beast from the 90s alternative comedy scene in the United States. There's
Okay, yeah.
It came expressly, and Stuart talks about this on podcasts. It came out of the left, and so there's this really beautiful current of sort of alternative leftist comedy from the 80s that still survives in that country. Yeah, and so that is really recently what I've been hyper focusing on.
Focusing. Has that been affecting your writing? Do you think you've been writing similar to that?
Yeah, it absolutely. I mean, I think anything that I watch influences my writing heavily. But what I'm looking at right now is, I'll send you some of his material.
I would love that.
Wonderfully.
Do you
stuff.
watch a lot of comedy?
Yeah.
I don't mean to. I do mean to cut you off because it's my fucking podcast.
Yeah, go for it.
But I am going to cut you off on. I don't get when comedians are like, I don't watch comedy. Like, I don't listen to... Because it's like, you have to study the craft, too. Like, I feel like you have to love it in the way that, like, you have to watch it. You have to listen to it so that you know what else is out there so you can find your own lane. People think that listening to stuff is going to make them copy them, but I think that'll make you find your own way because you'll know what else is out there.
Yeah, and... it's okay in the first couple of years of stand-up to parrot somebody for a little bit.
Yeah, 100%.
I think that's something that there's definitely a lot of stigma around that.
I used to listen to so much Daniel Tosh growing up, and then he doesn't release a lot of material, so I kind of stopped listening to him for that 8 years or 6 years that he stopped releasing material. And then I started listening to him again, and I was like, oh, there's influence there. Like, you just kind of, don't even realize that influence is there.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, before I was a comic, the comedy that I listened to in middle school, the sort of 2012 Patton Oswalt stuff and, the Daniel Tosh material
Dimitri
that was out
Martin?
at that time.
Were you a Dimitri
I was
Martin?
not into Dimitri in middle school. I wasn't hip
He was
enough.
one of the first comedians I loved.
Was not hip enough for Dimitri in middle school.
Well, it's really funny. When I was younger... I would like that stuff. Like, I used to be obsessed with, like, Gary Gulman in high school, like, early high school.
Yeah.
Just because I would put on Comedy Pandora and he would come on, and he's just such a good writer.
Yeah.
I met Jim Gaffigan on my 10th birthday when I went to go see him. Yeah.
That's so cute. Wait, where'd you, was in the area?
On Cape at the Melody Tent. I actually have a signed CD from him that says "Happy Birthday" to my best friend Sam.
I love when comics go to more out of the way spots in the U.S. I think it's so important.
When I was really young, I made it a point before I even wanted to. I mean, I wanted to do comedy, but before I did it, I made it a point to meet as many comedians. So I've met a ton of comedians when I was like 16, 17.
Yeah.
It's just kind of fun. I broke in backstage to meet John.
You broke in?
I broke in backstage to meet John Hodgman at
my
Mass
God.
Mocha and Paul F. Tompkins.
Paul F. Tompkins was a Mass Mocha?
It was Paul F. Tompkins, John Hodgman, and I broke in backstage to meet them. And John Hodgman was not a fan. Paul F. Tompkins was actually very nice. Tig Notaro was there too. I got a picture with all of them.
Yeah.
But John Hodgman would not take the picture with me.
Yeah. Was
They
he
realized,
angry that you broke in?
he was there. But I think Tig and Paul F. Tompkins realized I was a 16-year-old kid and that I was just a big fan, and they were like, so fast forward a year, I'm seeing John Hodgman at the Wilbur, and he's one of my favorite authors. Area of my expertise is one of my favorite books, and I bring it to him.
Yeah.
I wait in line and I go, hey, I'm the kid who broke in backstage. I don't know if you remember me last year. I'm the kid who broke in backstage, and I'm sorry, but I just want to tell you that I was a big fan. And he goes, you know what? I appreciate that. And in the book, he wrote to Sam, who broke in backstage. And he was very nice. He signed the book. He signed the poster. I got pictures of him. But it was I thought he hated me for a whole year. And I had to turn that shit around.
It's funny that when comics come through the same venue every year, you sort of you can build a rapport like a minute at a time. You know what I mean? You get 1 minute of talking to them, and you get that once per year. And if you do that for enough years in a row, eventually you can be like, hey, we talked 2 years ago. That's happened to me too.
Which comedians did you?
Well, yeah. So Gary does the Wilbur every year now,
Mm-hmm.
and after the Wilbur every year, I wait in line and I go, "Hey, Gary, I love your stuff. I loved that set that you did at Great Scott and Olsen in 2017." One thing that I think would be kind of fun to do is to, and you could do this too. We could like print out a picture of you with the comic, and then bring it to you with the comic, and you say, "Can you hold this picture while we take the picture?" And then you print that picture.
Oh, and you keep doing it. That would be pretty cool. How many years in until it gets creepy?
I think it's sooner than I want to admit. I think it's like
It's like the first
4.
time.
I'm saying 4 for my own sake because I've done it twice. So
Oh, you have pictures with them holding
no.
up
I just
oh.
mean visiting in general. Yeah.
The Wilbur is a really good theater for that. I've seen so many shows at the Wilbur. Seats very uncomfortable, but
But do you know what I like is the angle of the slope of the stadium seating makes it very easy to see who's on stage. There's
Yeah.
no like tall person sitting in front of you and then you're. This is short person problems.
I know. And also, this is such inside baseball, though. We're talking that all 10 listeners have already checked off. Ani, have you ever? Well, do you want to tell your story of meeting a famous comedian? Or do you have any other stories of meeting any famous comedians or comedians that are inspirational
I have
to you?
stories, but I just like to not talk about them. I don't know.
Yeah, I understand.
Gotcha.
We're both. Are you an only child?
Yeah.
I'm an only child.
I'm an
High
only
five.
child.
Oh, well, that's
We in the club.
That's
Only child.
surprising.
Really?
Well, yeah, because Evan
A
and
lot of
I
people say that to me.
are
Actually.
talking about a lot of shit, and you're like, you know what? I don't really want to tell people. Like, only children
That's
want to
true.
tell everyone everything.
It's true.
I wrote for an hour the other day, and the only thing I came up with was the term lonely only.
I mean, a lot of the people who I've met in the past, I now am working with to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that makes
I
sense.
just,
Yeah, better safe than sorry, right? That makes a lot of sense.
but it's
I
always
hope they
cool.
listen to this.
It's always cool.
Yeah.
It's always cool when you find out someone's very chill.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like you expect them to be like this cool person, and then they are.
I don't think I've ever met a comedian that was like a dick.
I mean, I can't recall any off the top of my head either, you know?
Yeah.
I meet people who are sort of like in the groove of business.
Oh,
where-
100%
that's
who
like a whole
they just
separate
don't
thing.
like really want to talk.
Yeah,
But
I mean, you know, you fly to a city across the country and you do your time, and
Mhm.
it's totally reasonable to just want to go home, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
do you switching up subjects? Do you have like? Do you write every day? Do you make your eggs and toast? Do you have do you have a routine?
Yeah, I have a routine. I generally, I'm taking online classes this summer, so that is a big help.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to have that structure, I think, prevents me from. I'm a person who needs structure for, like, in order to maintain good mental health.
I
have
need
to-
structure, but not from anyone else. I need to give myself structure and stick to it. But if anyone else is telling me what to do, I'm like, fuck you.
Yeah, that's funny because I sort of, I sometimes I'll use that authority. I'll use hatred of that authority to write jokes. So if I'm bored in my class and I don't think it's interesting, I can like keep my notebook off to the side and.
I could,
Right.
when I was in college, I could never write jokes well in class.
The key is to not pay attention. The key is to fail the class.
Do you write every day? Do you make it a point to?
I write every day, but it's more out of habit than it is. I don't have a set time. It's generally just whenever I
Is
want
it? Do you write comedy or do you journal or?
to. Combination. Generally, I write jokes when I'm in a good mood, and I journal when I'm in a bad mood. Yeah.
Journaling's good, but I journaled for every single day for a good amount of time, and I felt like I was kind of rehashing the
Yep.
same stuff sometimes. So I've kind of taken a break from it and focused on writing comedy. And it's funny, you and I took a very romantic walk on the
Oh, it was
beach.
so romantic. I wish, Ani, I wish you could have been a fly on the wall.
Yeah,
during that
we
beach date.
skipped into the sunset.
We
That
got
sounds
ice
very
cream
positive.
together. Yeah.
It was.
Very
but
positive.
we talked about And actually, you are reading The War of Art. I don't know
Yes.
if you've gotten to this point yet, but about comedy will come if you just wait for the muse. Like, you can't
Oh, I
force
got to
it
the
to
muse
come right at the point. Like, you can't be like, I'm going to write jokes now.
It's
You
10
just
a.m.
have to keep writing, and the jokes will come, but you have to be there waiting for the muse
Yeah.
to come. You
But-
can't force it to be there.
Also, the caveat to that too is the part that comes before that, which is the amateur versus the professional. And the professional is the one that, like, it's part of their life, but they're not like a fair weather sort of like person who
Yeah.
does this activity. So there's a difference in how the two bodies kind of like do that one craft.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah. And I think it comes back to setting up other parts of one's life in a way
Absolutely.
that makes it easier to write jokes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always think about that when I think like, oh, but I want to relax today. I
Yeah.
think, do the people that I want to be like relax
Yeah.
for 3 hours? No, they like a comedian doesn't have a 9-to-5 job usually, but they have to treat it like
Yep.
one. Like I have to force myself to write every day. It's good to force yourself into. I talk about good addictions. I have an addictive personality, so I
yeah.
know I have to like teach myself good addictions. Like
Yeah.
I'm addicted to meditating every day when I wake up. So like that's something that's good now.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm addicted to doing yoga every morning because it's like a stretch that I can feel good. Like I get addicted to running. I get addicted to riding
Mm-hmm.
my bike. And then I know that I can't get addicted to good things or bad things. So I
Yeah.
just have to force myself
Yeah.
to go towards the good.
Yeah. And once I think it's kind of paradoxical, but sort of removing that personal agency to self-sabotage, it empowers you to make correct decisions without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
Which is like super helpful. Yeah.
I self-sabotage with food, I think. Like,
Mm.
I love eating unhealthy food, and then
Yeah.
that'll make my brain not function as
Yeah.
well, and then that will make me not want to push myself to work out, so then it kind of spirals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it absolutely is. And then it's frustrating to try to write jokes in the middle of that because
Yeah,
there's
'cause-
all this extra sort of static going on, in the subconscious.
But also, this is what sucks about my joke writing, is I have to fully commit my life to something to get a joke out of it. Like, I wanted to
that's
write a
hard, yeah.
joke about bicycle helmets.
Yeah.
So I started riding my bike every single day, and I got addicted to bike riding. And I finally have a good 2 minutes out of bike riding, but it's like I had to fucking put my whole life into it
Yeah.
just to get a bit out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. There is on a meta level, there's something that you can do where you sort of feign that expertise to win the crowd over. So if you pretend to know things about bicycle helmets for 2 minutes in a very obvious way, that might be a way to get around sort of the full commitment thing, while at the same time, I mean, obviously it's not going to be correct. None
No,
of the
but do
information's
you
gonna be correct.
feel your jokes aren't personal? Like, you don't have personal
No.
jokes. Do
None
you
of them.
think that helps you write jokes because you don't have to like with me, sometimes I'm like, how much fucking deeper do I have to dig? Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? I'm going inward instead of outward.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think writing impersonal things does make it much easier because you don't have to say what you know to be true. You
Yeah.
you can lie to yourself. You can lie to other people. You can just make things up out of thin air.
I only have one Evan Zigmond joke.
Yeah. Oh, I want to hear it so bad.
I only have one joke that isn't personal. It's silly. It's I hate going outside during the winter. It's like the trees are trying to fuck me. It's like, put some leaves on or something.
Nice. That's great.
It's so stupid. And it was one of the first jokes I ever wrote and performed, but it's so dumb. But
Yeah.
I guess I have to love myself more because I'm always like, you're not funny when I'm writing. And then I'll be like, well, if I uncover one new part of myself, maybe people will find that funny.
Yeah.
Because the rest of it isn't. This is why it's your self-help podcast now, is I need to get that level of self-love where it's like, whatever I write about is going to be funny. I don't need to keep digging for
Yeah.
what's the new dark thing about myself.
Oh, it is so cathartic to just write down some BS and like try it. You know, like even if you don't believe in it all the way, just to sort of take the pressure off by writing nonsense. You know,
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of like the.
Do you have your notebook with
Yeah.
you?
The saying Dunkin' Donuts for 2 minutes joke. It's nonsense. It doesn't mean anything. But that's kind of the fun.
What's one of the first jokes on your in your notebook? I'm gonna go on.
Oh, this will be fun. Yeah. March 14th, 2020. Armpit and knee pit.
Can you?
I have oodles of hair on my armpits. None to speak of on my knee pits.
Do I have hair on my knee pits? I have a little bit of hair on my knee
Imagine,
pits.
well, the premise of the joke is imagine how dope it would be to have hair on your knee pits. And again, see, that means nothing. It's completely irrelevant. It has no bearing on human life, but it's just fun to say.
Oh, I have the ass of an Atlanta stripper with 2 C-section scars.
That's great.
What does that even mean with 2 C-section
Yeah,
scars?
you can take it further. My ass is the ass of an Atlanta stripper. I had a transplant, and I paid
An ass plant?
many thousands of dollars, and now I have an Atlantan ass. Yeah. Is that are people from Atlanta Atlantans? I don't really know.
Atlantisans?
I couldn't say.
Why don't people in movies have longer comas?
Have longer comas?
I see, all my ideas are so stupid. This is why I need to dig deep into my darkness.
No, but see, things can be stupid. The stupid things are fun. That's how I see it. But
Were there any other comedians in New Mexico? Like, how did you?
oh my god. Yeah.
How did you scratch that itch? Was there a club you could go to?
The 2 months.
Even before and growing up.
Okay, yeah. So March and April, nothing was open, but I will say, Las Cruces, my hometown, had sort of a burgeoning scene around like 2014, 15. They had a couple comedy mics, which was really unheard of for the area. And I went to them in high school a few times, but I wasn't committed enough to continue going weekly.
What's New Mexico comedy like?
New Mexico comedy, it's a lot smaller. I'd say it's chummy. People, I mean, from what I've, I'm not going to speak for the entire scene, but everyone I've met is
Please
incredibly...
speak for
No,
the
no,
entire...
no, no,
Evan
no, 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 no,
Zigmond,
no, no,
the
no, no.
spokesperson of New Mexico
Everybody
Mexican
love
comedy.
everybody!
One thing that I will say is, at least I've spent, I don't know, a month, 2 months in the Albuquerque scene, and people, sort of the delineation of comics based on how long they've been performing is not a thing in Albuquerque. Here it's more like the people who've been doing it for 4 years hang out with the people who've been doing it for 4 years, and the people who've been doing it for 8 years hang out with the people who've been doing it for 8 years, with exceptions, obviously. But in Albuquerque, you got, veterans of that scene who've been doing it for 10 years, people who've been doing it a month, and they're just all hanging out.
Is it because it's a smaller scene,
Yes.
do you think?
Yeah, that is why.
Is there good camaraderie?
There is, yeah. One afternoon, I was invited to sit in a trailer and smoke a blunt with a few people that I just met that day. So
Oh, that's
people are
exciting.
very friendly in that city. Yeah.
Was it a big change when you came out to Boston to do I feel like there's a big difference in Providence comedy versus Boston comedy. Like, Providence
Yeah.
comedy is still, I don't want to speak for Providence comedy, but it's a little more, it's a little bit more edgy. Like, people are just trying to, try jokes out, kind of. It's almost as if evolution's a little bit farther behind. Like, Boston comedy's a little bit more evolved because it's a bigger scene, but as it grows, as
It's like a
places
parallel
grow.
motion thing, yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
There's an evolution of places. Did you ever watch the documentary I'm Dying Up Here with Tom Segura
No.
and Chad Daniels and Pete Lee?
No, I haven't.
They all go to Asia to do comedy in 2014 when none of them were really known. It's on Amazon Prime. It's a really good documentary, but they talk about how it's the scene hasn't evolved yet, so it's a lot more easy jokes because the scene hasn't built up. But then these guys come in and are doing jokes, and they're really not even as working as well as these easy jokes because of the cultural difference. But
Yeah.
it's a very good documentary. It's on Amazon Prime.
That's wonderful. I'm always looking for more stand-up. That's the thing. I get burnt out on strict stand-up. I get burnt out on just watching stand-up all day, every day. So being able to find some stand-up adjacent content is really important.
Do you read like comedian autobiographies, biographies? Do you read like how-to books?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. That comic who I mentioned earlier, Stuart Lee. He has 3 or 4 books, or no, he's got at least 2 books out. I want to say 3, and he's got one from the early 2010s that has like word for word transcripts of various shows that he did, along with little asterisks and, and
really?
notes, and he'll explain his thought process.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
It's very it's the approach to the book is it's like a manual for a craftsman or something, like a woodworker's manual for a woodworker.
Yeah. Did you ever read The Art of Stand-Up Comedy by Franklin Aget?
No, I never did read it.
It's actually it's a little bit dated. Like they talk about like how to get on the Tonight Show because like it was in the 90s and that was, but there's actually a lot of really good information on there. There's information that I've gotten from it that I still haven't listened to, but I think it's the best. You have to wait the longest possible time before saying your next line.
Yeah.
And I rush so bad, and the worse I do, the more I rush.
Yeah, it's easy to get into that sort of, because I mean I panic when like 2 or 3 jokes bomb in a row, and so it's really easy to rush through material after that.
Yeah. And then that it fucks you up longer in the long run because then you're out of material quicker, and then you have to like pander in the end because you're thinking and it's hard to like think of jokes even if you know the joke word for word. It's hard to on the spot be like, let me pull up a new joke.
Yeah, I guess I got to talk about Raising Cane's in the last minute.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the worst.
So you have like a clean style, but you're not a clean comedian. Like you're Ode to ISIS and all that stuff.
Yeah, Ode to ISIS. Well, that's a classic bit. Yeah, so I don't think swearing is super necessary. I'm not against it per se, but I don't think it inherently adds anything to a joke most of the time. And I like being able to do cleaner material because then you can go in front of like high schoolers or something.
Yeah, I'm happy that you're on this podcast so I can ask you this because I always like, would you be angry or would you be fine if they were like, hey, you're gonna be a clean comedian now, like you'll be able to tour, like we can get you tour, but you have to, or do you want, like I could not do a clean show, like I have clean jokes, but like it's just not me. I don't think I could do it. But do you not care enough that you're like,
interesting. Well, I don't think if I were to be, I would like to avoid the categorization of clean comic just because I don't like that categorization. I don't think
because like Gary
useful.
Gulman's not a dirty comic, but he's not clean.
Yeah.
But then Brian Regan, who's one of my favorite
like
comedians,
clean.
is clean.
Yeah.
It's so funny when you listen to podcasts and he swears. It's like, oh.
Yeah, what? No.
No, but do you... I mean, of course, every comedian wants to do their own thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, my thing just doesn't really involve sex or drugs or...
rock and roll.
Or rock and roll, really.
Yeah, there's no sex, drugs, or rock and roll.
I have a joke about punk music, but not about rock and roll music.
So, do you play any... Are you a musical person? Do you play any instrument?
I play tenor saxophone.
Oh, I actually knew that. So, do you... I meditate, but I don't meditate. I don't play music, which... there is a through line. Like, do you get in a meditative state when you play music?
Yeah, I find that certain grounding activities like that will sort of zone me in. And when I'm zoned in, anxiety sort of dissipates and depression gets a lot easier to deal with.
Yeah.
So things like playing the saxophone, cooking is a big one that I've found.
Cooking eggs and
yeah,
toast.
cooking, doing exercise, whether it be vigorous or even just like going for a walk, and then writing jokes if I'm in a good mood is sort of like a self-reinforcing thing.
Do you run jokes by comedian friends? I
Great question.
I have a hard time doing it because whenever someone says a tag doesn't work or it gives me a tag, it's kind of like it's not in my voice.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really work that way.
Yeah. I run by jokes. I run my jokes.
You run by jokes?
Yeah, I
you
run by
wait, you
jokes.
put it on a piece of paper and you just
and I run by
right
it
by it.
physically. Yeah. Yeah. I run and then I set up like a little robot that carries the joke and runs. So I run parallel to it.
I actually do my best memorization for joke writing is when I'm running. I'll run and say my jokes out loud because my body's preoccupied.
Yeah.
And if I can memorize the jokes and say a good set while
Yeah.
my body's preoccupied, then
You're
it's
good.
that much deeper in.
That's a great point. What was the original question? I forgot.
You run your jokes by
thanks, yeah.
other comedians.
I run my jokes exclusively by my parents right now. Actually, my parents are both big stand-up comedy fans.
Oh, that's so.
Independently of me, which is very helpful because they have separate tastes. Let's see. My mom also really likes Stuart Lee along with me, but you know she's like a huge. She's still a huge Patton fan.
Did you like his new special?
Which one? I don't think I've seen the most recent one.
Oh, it just came out, and there's a Dave Rubin special attached to it.
Oh, cool.
That's really cool
That's
too.
super
Yeah, you
sweet.
should watch those.
Whereas my dad is like my dad really loves Tom Segura. He likes kind of dirtier stuff. He loves toilet humor so much, my dad. And so, my parents both have different senses of humor, and I'll call them and be like, "Hey, I have a little premise."
Oh,
Can you-"
that's. My dad,
Little weasel.
growing up, told me that I didn't like stand up. This is before I wanted to be a stand up. This was just like
Yeah.
he didn't really like it. But he'll still give me ideas, and they're always so bad. His premises are so bad every single time. So I don't really run my jokes by my parents anymore because it's like, they'll give me the worst premises.
Yeah. I mean, there is sort of like one can run jokes by their parents, and then like taking advice after running the jokes is a separate can of worms.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
It definitely is.
Yeah, but I feel like if I open the door, then they'll just flood in. So thank you very much for being on this podcast.
absolutely.
I really appreciate it. I'd love to get you back on once Egg and Toast gets even bigger.
Yeah.
But thank you very much.
Thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate
Of
it.
course. This was Bucked Up. I hope you enjoyed it. Like, subscribe, follow. Do you want to plug any
I
of
was
your
about
shit?
to say, I can plug my Twitter account, is where I'm putting jokes now that comedy doesn't exist. So my Twitter's at Bronstein Online, BRONSTEIN Online.
And if you like Eggs and Toast, what's the
Yeah.
Facebook page?
If you like Eggs and Toast, the page is Egg on Toast Enthusiasts, and we're very enthusiastic about Eggs and Toast, so check it out.
Thank you guys so much for
Thanks.
listening, and thanks for being on.
Absolutely.